think it was the great physicist Max Delbruck who said that, when teaching, assume zero knowledge and infinite intelligence. I try and keep that in mind. I think that we are all innate learners by virtue of the fact that this nervous system, as it's called, is really a map of our experience. And it's there to form itself. It's unusual among the organs in that it shapes itself.
Welcome back to Biohacking Insights. In today's video, Dr. Huberman gives more sound advice that will impact your learning process. How can you affect your relationship with learning over time?
I think it was the great physicist Max Delbruck who said that, when teaching, assume zero knowledge and infinite intelligence. We are all innate learners by virtue of the fact that this nervous system is really a map of our experience. And it's there to form itself. It's unusual among the organs in that it shapes itself. The nervous system is there essentially to educate itself so that it can operate better in a given environment.
The brain and spinal cord extend throughout the body to form the nervous system that coordinates and regulates all bodily functions, from basic reflexes to complex cognitive processes, allowing communication between different body parts and responding to external stimuli. But it's the complex cognitive processes that are the focus of this video. The crucial learning process, memory, and retention, and the neuroscientist Dr. Huberman highlights why all-nighters might not be as great as you think. It's not like staying up all night to get stuff done comes easy for most people. And there's a reason it's so, as your body needs that time to recover. But for whatever reason you interrupt the recuperation process, studies show that your memory, cognition, and learning process slow down significantly. And when you get some snooze, it's usually enough to get you back on track. For instance, maths could be learned using different types of examples, guides, and analogies. Just simple long division and multiplication. But in the end, what you're trying to learn is the universal algorithm of how the brain works. This is what that means. All these nerve cells can only communicate through chemicals and electricity. Believe it or not, most algorithms are universal. So whether or not one learns better verbally or visually, what is valid for all of us is that the brain is always asking questions and trying to make predictions about its environment. Dr. Huberman suggests that it all begins in childhood when we learn passively. As we get older, especially in our mid and late 20s, it now takes an immense amount of focus and energy to learn. Of course, the nervous system can still shape itself well into adulthood, almost certainly for the entire lifespan, but that focus and energy feels almost like agitation. And I think that as children, we don't necessarily experience that agitation because we can, more or less, experience and change passively. As we get older, mid-20s, early 30s, and so on, that threshold of agitation for people feels like it's something to back away from. Still, if we can learn to approach that and understand that agitation is the circulation of chemicals, which is the brain and nervous system telling itself, now I need to pay attention and change. That way we can start to modify the way that the system works. At the heart of our nervous system is its ability to change itself by its programming, and it's on all of us to understand that a bit of agitation and discomfort need not be interpreted as a bad situation. That's the edge where learning is beginning. So feeling somewhat overwhelmed by the amount of information is the stir of chemicals that are cueing the nervous system to change, because if it can do something quickly, there's no reason for the nervous system to change. Now, in terms of different styles of teaching and learning, Dr. Huberman states that many of us experience that agitation early on, and for understandable reasons, we back away from learning anymore.
Nowadays, we can look to studies done in humans that define some very key principles. The first principle is that the whole process of neuroplasticity and learning is really a two-stage process. First, there must be focus and alertness. That focus and alertness is associated with the release of neurochemicals, so-called neuromodulators, things like acetylcholine in particular, which sort of acts as a highlighter pen, if you will, for certain connections in the brain to later be reinforced, and the neurochemical adrenaline, which is also called epinephrine.
When your alarm wakes you up or when you get nervous, your body releases adrenaline. Adrenaline is associated with an increase in agitation and alertness. So you need alertness and focus. But this is only the first stage of learning. The second stage is during periods of deep rest, in particular sleep. and something Dr. Huberman calls non-sleep deep rest, or NSDR. It includes things like yoga, shallow naps, and many other forms of meditation. This allows the nervous system to change, and according to Dr. Huberman, evidence is abundant. So that's the first thing to understand, that the brain rewires during deep sleep and rest, because during deep sleep and rest, naps, yoga, there's a replay of the very same cells in the brain that were active during learning. First, there must be focus and alertness. That focus and alertness is associated with the release of neurochemicals called neuromodulators, like acetylcholine in particular, which sort of acts as a highlighter pen for certain connections in the brain to be later reinforced. Often, this happens to be so for reasons that are still not understood and at a much higher repetition rate. So you're getting repetitions while you sleep. This is why you will probably strain to learn a language or a motor skill or maths or something like that over and over and over. It doesn't happen until you take a couple nights sleep, take a break from all the work, and all of a sudden, it's there. It's there because memory consolidation happens at rest. There's what neuroscientists call ultradian rhythm, the 90-minute cycle during which we can focus intensely with a one-track mind. Some fascinating data shows that shallow naps, or NSDR, done within 4 hours of one of those 90-minute learning bouts can be very beneficial for accelerating learning. So you should focus intensely on work for 90 minutes, then go for a shallow nap after every 4 hours of work. It'll boost your learning rate like never before.
There are these incredible data on so-called gap effects. So there have been studies now of physical skills, mental skills, where people will, for instance, try to learn scales on the piano, or a math problem, or a spatial problem, or a physical skill. And then at random, every so often, a buzzer will go off and the person will just be told to do nothing. Sit there, eyes closed or eyes open, and do nothing. Just stop the learning process for about 10 seconds and then return to doing what they're doing.
These are little micro rests. It turns out that during these micro rests, the hippocampus and neocortex, both brain areas associated with learning and memory, undergo replay of the thing that the individual is trying to learn at 20 times the speed. Just as sleep has been shown to lead to accelerations in learning, there are also these simple tricks the nervous system already harbors that one can access easily. So no matter what stage you are in life, every so often when trying to learn something, just pause for 10 seconds or so. Do your best to clear your mind. Of course, it's tough to clear your mind, but do your best and then return to the learning task. And this should be a habit, no matter your schedule or age. Did you know that people in their 80s and 90s still have neuroplasticity? According to Dr. Huberman, there's evidence that new neurons can be produced in the hippocampus of people in their late 80s and 90s. So the answer to learning is deep rest. Sleep deprivation makes it very hard to learn. It also compromises immune system function. There's a stage of sleep, rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, where the eyes move. This tends to come later in the night during the second half of sleep, where there's a tendency to have very emotional dreams. During REM sleep, you cannot move your body because you're experiencing sleep-induced paralysis, and it's totally fine. A replay of an emotional event minus the adrenaline, those dreams can often feel very distressing. It's been shown that if you deprive people of rapid REM sleep, they fail to dump the negative emotions of things that happened the day before, and the day before, the day before. We all must have experienced the emotional shift that happens when we are sleep deprived. Scientists believe that we have some kind of built-in trauma release therapy, where you get to experience the thing in your sleep minus the neurochemicals that make your body feel terrible. Somehow, that dissociation allows people to then step back into life with a clean slate. If you enjoyed this video, check out the Huberman Goggins way of doing the things you hate. Stay tuned.